morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. We'll come in and sit down and put your feet up. And let's keep warm today as we recover from what has been a very, very cold time. And yesterday was the spring equinox. There was very little that was springy about yesterday. So let's take the opportunity just to be quiet for a moment, just to gather ourselves into God's presence and to become aware of His deep and abiding love for us, to become aware of the extent to which He delights in our taking the time just to be with Him. At a point in the life of Christ, it becomes quite clear that Jesus has made the choice to go to Jerusalem for one last time. And this is written particularly clearly in the Gospel of Mark. He makes the choice to embrace his mission. And Mark paints a powerful portrait of that journey toward his mission. The journey begins with a dramatically symbolic miracle. Jesus heals the blindness of a man, but he doesn't heal him instantaneously. At first the man begins to see, but not very clearly. Then Jesus touches the man. He touches the man's eyes a second time and heals him. He then asks his disciples about their own vision, their vision of who he is. And so we understand that this journey is about opening their eyes to see who he really is, and their mission is to follow him. Along the way, Jesus predicts what will happen to him in Jerusalem. And he gives this prediction 3 times, and 3 times they misunderstand it. And 3 times he tells them what it means to be a disciple. Finally, they reach the outskirts of Jerusalem, and Jesus encounters another blind man. And right away, the man can see. And he goes down the road with Jesus. Mark 10 and verse 52. And so as he goes on this journey, we begin to see how we, you and I, might go with him to Jerusalem. Now, of course, Peter rejects Jesus' view of his mission. He rejects the idea that before Jesus lies a time of great pain and suffering and not great victory. Certainly not victory in worldly eyes anyway. And so Peter rejects this view. And Jesus tells him that he sees like everyone else, not as God sees. Jesus says that if we want to be disciples, we have to surrender any self-absorption and take up his cross and walk with him. Any desperate attempt to avoid giving our lives away is deadly. But placing our lives in God's hands is what is life-giving. After Jesus tells them a second time what they can face in Jerusalem, he finds that they are arguing about which one of them is the greatest. And Jesus tells them that greatness is about being a servant. It is about embracing the littlest ones around us, the marginalized, the defenseless, the poor, the rejected, those upon whom disdain falls. But the disciples are so caught up in competition and jealousy. And so Jesus tells them that their role as servants rules out any kind of privileged position, any kind of status. And so perhaps we can ask ourselves the question, with whom do we compete? Where could we be of service? And do we want Jesus to help us to truly, truly see? That can be quite scary, though. Because once we can see, we have to do something about what we see. And so today, be attentive to moments of blindness. Be sensitive to the time you feel resistance rising up in you. And that resistance says, I do not want to do this. I have to confess that I had a weekend of a house filled with guests. People I didn't know staying in the B&B. And because it was cold, they were inside. And by the end of that weekend, I was peopled out. And then for lunch came 2 young boys, and I must admit that I didn't want to be hospitable to them. I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to go into my cave and recover. And I recognized that as a resistance in me to being of service to guests in my home. And I have to ask for forgiveness for that. It was not right. So we look for the voice that says, no, I don't want to do that. It says, how do I avoid this? Notice where you desire to be better than and where you avoid lesser roles. And so today, simply pray that Jesus helps you to see as God sees. May you be blessed today. Amen.